Madam President, it's typical for commentators to talk about how China is no longer really a communist nation. Of course, only the most ardent China apologists would question that China is still a one-party authoritarian state. It's just that the economic policies pursued since the early 1980s that is hard to square with Marxism-Leninism. I want to say to everybody, not so fast. The sixth plenary session of the Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party contained a brand new historical resolution. This is only the third such paper since the founding of the Chinese Communist Party. The first, historians will remember, was when Mao Zedong put out one in 1945, and the second one was Deng Xiaoping in 1981. Now, revising the historical narrative has been used in the past to set a stage for a whole new era in China and a whole new era for the rhetoric of the Democrat Party, of the Communist Party. Most China watchers see this paper as a consolidation of power by the General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party, Xi Jinping. But to what end does he pursue? His rhetoric sounds more like Mao than the Chinese leader, any Chinese leader, since Deng Xiaoping. General Secretary Xi's historical resolution reads as a break from China's economic policies, what we thought was moving towards a free market system since the 1980s. And until the last few years, I would say it was moving towards a free market system. But it's too late to turn back now, right? Well, don't be so sure. The Soviet Union pursued its new economic policy as a short-term effort to strengthen the state before returning to a more pure Marxism. In a similar vein, General Secretary Xi has been cracking down on non-state-owned businesses, giving seemingly no care of the cost to the Chinese economy. General Secretary Xi's recent policies reportedly wiped out up to $1 trillion of stock value. He's doing this under the banner of so-called common prosperity, giving socialist ideology backbone to what seems to be a power play, to put him in a position of forever, the rest of his life, governing China. American businesses need to pay attention to all this. Even if they don't care about the slave labor camp full of Uyghurs, even if they don't care about the suppression of democracy in Hong Kong, if our business leaders don't care about China's increasingly aggressive military posture, even willing to look the other way to China's stealing intellectual property and trade secrets. Considering all that for American business over there, I would urge extreme caution to any business that still sees the Chinese market as a cash cow. Many people thought China would become a democratic, very democratic, once it had sufficient capitalists. Maybe General Secretary Xi is worried about just that, being too capitalistic, being too many people successful without the help of the government. So if anyone thinks General Secretary Xi would not dare sacrifice economic growth in the pursuit of power, think again. Emerging market funds with a lot of exposure in China ought to think about rebalancing. Pension funds that are overexposed to the Chinese market are risking wiping out the retirement savings of American workers, just like we've seen so far, $1 trillion less value Chinese stocks because of his General Secretary Xi's policies. My advice then to American business is that China is not a safe bet. Surely not the safe bet that many American businessmen thought it was. So a little bit of advice: anyone investing in China ought to go in with open eyes and a big tolerance for risk, as long as General Secretary Xi goes down this line of accumulating political power and not caring about destroying what private sector is left there. I yield the floor.